Evening, everyone. When Spa first opened over 100 years ago, there was always a dependency and a notion in the region that whenever a track had opened in this wonderful part of Europe, there was always the possibility that the weather could play havoc with any motorsport that happened around this track. And over the years, there have been multiple occasions where the drivers have had to fight all of the elements that there possibly can be, ranging from the scorching heat of summer to the brutal wet conditions that we saw in open-wheeled cars back in the 1960s. But Spa has stood the test of time. And the drivers tonight here at ACC Race Nation are also going to be fighting the elements. We've got a wet race. It's round 6 of season 10 here at the GT3 Championship. I'm Jack Millington, your commentator as always for the action tonight. We've got an hour race about to kick off in 15 minutes time, just under 15 minutes time, and the weather is all over the place. We're really looking forward to some of the action tonight. We're following Mike Verwij at the moment in the Porsche 992. Let's ride on board with him whilst we're here. We've got Rich Jarram just in front of us. I'll turn my own screen down so that it doesn't reverberate through everything. But Mike Verwij, let's get a lap with him here at Spa. He's going to come across the line now. He's got Rich Jarram right in front of him. He's going to have to back off. In fact, we'll go with John Wells then in the M4. He's just set the 4th best time, but he's going to approach turn 1 at La Source. Down through the gears he goes. First gear tucks the car in a little bit wide at the apex, but I don't think he'll mind too much. Up through the gears. Turn 2, this right-hander here, not really a corner in truth. And now John's got to get himself lined up for Eau Rouge and Radion. Click the left-hand side, then the right. It's M4 understeering over the road, and over the curbs he goes. It's going to be potentially invalidating that lap time. He's still cracking on, though. He's all the way up to 155 miles an hour in 6th gear as he approaches Le Com. This right, left, right. He's got a yellow flag in front of him. And in fact, he goes off the road. So that is that lap done and dusted. Got a few drivers in tonight who we've not seen this season. Good to see Danny Felix in the BMW M4, the number 985. Really a good privilege to see him in the championship. I've commentated on Danny many years ago in Gran Turismo Sport Leagues with Next Gen as well, so it's a real pleasure to have him racing tonight. And there is another debutant as well this evening. I'm just trying to flick through the cars. I've just seen his name come up. There he is. It's Jacob Byford-Root. He's in the Porsche 992, which rhymes with his name. Fabulous. The number 21 going for a almost Belgian-inspired livery there. The black, red and yellow, obviously for those that are geographically challenged. That is the national colours of Belgium. He was saying in the chat earlier on the Discord, he was saying that he feels quite comfortable in these conditions. Let's see how the debutant does this evening as he approaches turn 10 at Bruel. A difficult corner even in the best of conditions to try and spot the apex. We'll see how he does. Those that are watching this evening live, good to see you. Please do comment on the stream what your thoughts and predictions are as Byford-Root gets the car sideways on the exit of turn 11. There is Sebastian Berger back this evening. The German driver, he had a fantastic run of races, did the German, but he missed last round, did Sebastian. And he hasn't, to be honest with you, he hasn't started 2 other races this evening. But the 2 races that he's took part in, he won both, as he runs very wide at Blanchimont. So for Sebastian, he's looking for 3 from 3 here. He is 14th in the championship as Mr. Berger, but he is someone who's incredibly quick. He was fastest in practice that we just had. He goes across the line, no time set, so I think he's going to go on to a lap, which is great because we can get on board with a lap here at Spa. So into turn 1, the 992 just running a little bit wide there. No such thing as understeer there in that moment. It was just more of a case of he braked a little bit too deep. Now he's got to line himself up for Eau Rouge. Nice use of the curb on the left-hand side. Again, struggling with understeer and has to shift down a gear into 5th. We'll wait and see if that invalidates the lap time, but he is carrying on. Into turn 6, the right-hander at the top of Radion. Now he's going to go up to 160 miles an hour pretty much. Yes, he does, as he brakes now. Down through the gears, into 2nd, I would imagine, for Lecom. At the right-hander, got to just feather the throttle in these tricky conditions. 3rd gear this time around, so clearly slippy at the top of the hill out of turn 9. And then into Bruel. Again, a difficult corner to get right. He runs very deep at 10, but uses a slightly different line than what I would have expected to navigate the corner nicely. Turn 11, no problem at all. Nice and clean through that corner. Into Pouon, one of the most famous corners in all of motorsport. The left-hander, it goes on forever, but for these GT3 drivers, they've got to get that car tight as possible. That's not bad so far from the Porsche man. Into then turns 12, 13 and 14 at the campus chicane. Again, another set of sweeping corners that the drivers just have to be patient with. Even though they run traction control in these cars, it's still very easy to spin the cars around. The right-hander at Stavolo at 15, nice and early on the throttle from the 585. Again, the right-hander, just got to be patient. It's so critical in these cars. Patience is an absolute virtue around here. Up through the gears, 6th gear, then at turn 17, coming towards Blanchimont, using all of the Astro on the right-hand side. A little bit of a lift, and another little lift as well as he goes through the left-hander. And then it's about spotting your braking zone into the chicane. Down into 1st gear for the Porsche, 40 odd miles an hour. Down to 39, very patient. In the 585, a little drift out of the corner, but it's a 226.387, and that puts Sebastian Berger on the front row of the grid. Let's go to the garage. Let's just have a look at where everybody is. It's Andy Skunky then who has the current provisional pole, and Skunky has shown this season that he can be quick. He was outstanding at Nordschleife 2 weeks ago. He put in a dominant performance there. He's got pole provisionally by 0.2 of a second. It's Danny Zoutenbayer in 3rd place. Steve Hall, he's got a new setup with, I believe, him and John Wells were both saying they're running the same setup in terms of the, excuse me, the new wheelbase. They're both running T598, so that's Thrustmaster wheels. So those two are getting up to speed with that. And yeah, John Wells was confirming that they're both running the T598 wheels. So Steve currently on the 2nd row of the grid. He's just in front of Mike Verwise. It's Simon Whiting, good to see him back. John Wells in 7th place. Dennis Pend is there in 8th position. John saying he's running a compromised setup as well, because of the way that the conditions are working tonight. Because it could be dry, it could get wetter, it could dry up. Wells preferring to run a compromised setup, so he's just going to see what happens there. Neil Wright in the 55 Porsche, he has returned this evening. Tony Manley, the Italian, is back. Let's hope he doesn't disconnect this evening. Davey Zoutenbayer is back. Danny Zoutenbayer's brother. He's got a nice new livery to go with that, orange, red and white. Joe Warner back in the Joker livery, and he flies off the road and discovers a few more bumps that even I didn't know were out there, to be fair. Well done to Joe. He spins the car back around, and he's doing his best impression of a lawnmower. So we'll move away from him and let him embarrass himself in front of the stands. Michael van der Wal, he's got a new livery on as well. He's been running a dark green livery in that McLaren 720S, but that's been adorned with black, orange and grey. It's a nice looking car, that I have to say, but he's yet to set a lap time that's validated, nor has Danny Felix. Jacob Byford-Rue has got Danny Felix right behind him. Mark Chapman has an important qualifying this for Chappers. He has to get himself right up there. Rich Jarram and Remy Fermi, who has yet to finish a race this season, so I'm hopeful that he is able to do that. So let's cut to the external shots of a couple of cars. A couple of cars here. Simon White and Danny Felix and Jacob Byford-Rue. And Byford-Rue doesn't have to move out of the way of Felix at all. You know, they might be on qualifying laps, but they are. It's not as if Byford-Rue is on a slow down lap or anything like that. But as I say that, Felix gets out of the way for Simon Whiting, who's in 6th position on board with Manley. Oh, brakes a little bit too deep at the chicane. He just about keeps it on circuit. Will this be a valid lap time for the Italian? No, he carries on. Steve Hull's in the pit. Steve Hull's in the pits and has his windscreen wipers on, but that's because he's about to go out. Danny Zoutenbayer in a Dayglow yellow Ferrari. It's interesting, really. Certain parts of the track look like it's raining heavily compared to the start-finish straight. Like as we go through turn 14 here with Danny Zoutenbayer, it looks like the rain is very, very heavy. But back at turn 1 at La Source, if we go to Skunky, effectively, let me just jump over to Skunky. Oh no, it looks lighter there. It's interesting. We're getting a few different perceptions of the weather. Skunky only at less than a tenth in front of Sebastian Berger. Those two at the front are absolutely flying. That's Zoutenbayer a little bit too wide there. Let's just run through the championship standings before we focus on these last 4 minutes of qualifying here at Spa-Francorchamps. Mark Chapman leads the championship on 114 points. The man that we're following, Danny Zoutenbayer, the Dutchman, is 4 points behind on 110. Steve Hall is on 107. He's in 3rd place. Jeffrey Van Buren doesn't look like he's here this evening. He was 4th in the championship on 106. Dennis Penders, he's 5th place on 94 points. I have to say, Dennis Penders having a consistent championship so far. He's been in every single race and has only had one finish outside of the top 10. Ross Harris, who isn't here this evening, is 6th on 90 points. John Wells is 7th on 88. Andy Skunky, the last time out race winner at the Nordschleife, he's 8th on 87 points. Tony Manley is 9th on 81 points, and Neil Wright is inside the top 10 on 79 points. Michael van der Wal is a point further back on 78. For the other drivers that are here, there are a few missing this evening. Stuart Packham being one of those drivers. But Stuart, he's had 4 races this season and he's finished 2 and retired from 2 others. Anthony Hunt is another one who's been in for most of the races this evening. He's unfortunately not here as well. So we should be having 20 drivers typically. But tonight we're just a little bit short of that. 2 minutes and 25 seconds remaining on the timing tower. Be enough time now for everybody who goes on to their flying laps. So I've just seen Andy Skunky. I think he will get probably one more lap, but it just depends how his tyres are faring. He's just done a lap time that's got him into the 25s to put himself 4 tenths clear of Sebastian Berger, who's not going to improve. So that's as high as he will start. Danny Zoutenbayer's in 3rd. Steve Hall's 4th. Cracking effort from John Wells in 5th position. I have to say, could be on for his best qualifying position that I've ever seen, certainly in the GT3 Championship. If he stays there, that's an astonishing effort. Dennis Penders just goes across the line, and that's a good effort from the man in 5th place in the drivers' standings. Dennis Penders, 1.8 off the overall outright fastest time, but still great effort from him. Danny Felix, he's coming towards the start-finish line. He's 4.4 off at the moment. He stays where he is for now. Danny Zoutenbayer, we were following him for quite a while on the lap that he's currently on at the present moment, but he's going to come across the start-finish line with just over a minute to go. Zoutenbayer doesn't improve. He's got one more lap to go. Championship leader in the top 10, but 7 places behind his main championship rival of Danny Zoutenbayer. Is this an improvement? It is an improvement. That's more like it from Chappers. He's within a second of pole position. So up to 3rd place goes the championship leader. What about Neil Wright? He's had a bit of misfortune this season, has Neil. Can he fight back though? In the Porsche he can't. Can Remy Fermi set a qualifying time? No, but he's on one last lap, so he's got the chance to do just that. Number 65, that's Mike Verwaege coming across the line. Well, yes, there's the improvement for him. It was actually Steve Hall who went quicker there. My timing tower updated a little bit strangely then, but Steve Hall moves up to 4th place, so the T598 base clearly promoting a little bit more competitiveness from the Season 8 champion. That's going really well for him, but he's got another lap to do just yet. Can he find any more time and get up with the top 3? First driver, though, who's going to see the checkered flag is Dennis Penders, the 103. On for a top 6 qualifying position. Still a great effort for John Wells as well, by the way, in the top 7. Through the left-hander at Blanchimont he goes. Turn 18. And then on the brakes in a moment. Got to get this braking zone right here, especially in these wet weather conditions. 19 and 20. That's a really nice apex through the first part of the chicane. And really nice again from the Belgian. Can he make any further improvements at his home track? He can, but he's just shy of a top 5 berth. But still, cracking effort from the Belgian. Here comes Danny Felix. Can he do anything to get himself off the bottom half of the table? He can't. He does improve on his lap time, but it's by less than a tenth, unfortunately. I think Danny Zoutenbayer has had a moment. Yeah, there you go. I thought he'd gone round at Blanchimont, and that's exactly what he's done. He's lost the front end, and that is qualifying over. So Danny Zoutenbayer, one of the pole position protagonists, he's out. Can Mark Chapman get himself onto the front row of the grid? He's going to be one of the last cars to do it. Across the line, he improves, but it's not enough to displace the top 2. So it's just Remy Fermi who's looking to set a valid lap time. Into the penultimate corner he goes. Neat and tidy out of 20. This just has to be valid. And it does improve him up the field. That's a good effort from Fermi. Let's go through these qualifying standings. It's Andy Skunky then, taking pole position. He was quick in Germany back at the Nordschleife. He's got pole position here by 0.4 of a second from Sebastian Berger. Row 2, it's Mark Chapman, the Season 10 championship leader, with the Season 8 champion alongside him, Steve Hall, in 4th place. Danny Zoutenbayer and Dennis Penders share row number 3. And that's an important starting berth for those two, especially for Dennis Penders in front of his home crowd in 6th place. John Wells also on the new wheel. He's in 7th place. Right alongside him is Mike Verwaege in 8th position. 9th and 10th, the 2 McLarens of Michael van der Waal and Simon Whiting. Less than a tenth separates 7th from 10th place. Neil Wright is the last driver within 3 seconds of pole position. He's in 11th place, the number 55 Porsche, and Remy Fermi on that last gasp effort, getting him into the 6th row of the grid. Tony Manley and Rich Jarram are on row 7, with Danny Felix and Davy Zoutenbayer in 15th and 16th respectively. And then following that on the final row of the grid, you have Jacob Byford-Roux in 17th place and Joe Warner in 18th position. The lawnmower sat at the back of the field, but nevertheless he was saying that he's not really done any practice for this evening. He has been spending a lot of time doing WRC. Well, if it continues to rain, he might have the opportunity to do some slides, do some drifting, but we shall see. But we will be a few moments away from racing. And there we go. Now, one thing that you might not be aware of is that this will be a night-time race. I didn't mention that during qualifying because I wanted that to be a nice surprise. The message from Steve Hall to say this looking like a bit of a lottery. It certainly does look like a bit of a lottery, I have to say. Now, some people have compromised as well with a wet setup. The track conditions are saying that it's greasy and track temperature is 11 degrees, so that's very, very cold. And that's something the drivers are going to have to be aware of with their tyre preparations for this race. And also, who gambled with a compromised setup? Will the rain appear? It does say on our forecast radar that in the first 10 minutes we're going to have some light rain, but it looks dry after that. So by the time we get to 30 minutes, it could all change. So 30 seconds. Tyre strategy is going to be fascinating. We have been given the 30-second countdown by our engineers. We get the race underway in just a moment. We will have a formation lap, of course. Session starting any second now. There we go. Drivers will be firing up the engines. There we go. And the first couple of cars have gotten away. So good news, the drivers are off and onto their formation laps. We have a little bit of rain. Let's just ride on board with Danny Zoutenbayer. In fact, let's ride on board with Andy Skunky at the front of the queue. Very, very light rain, I have to say. Cut to the external shot. Doesn't look like it's really raining at all at the moment. So maybe in about 10 minutes time we're going to see it get a little bit wetter. We just have a look. If you look in the top right hand corner of your screen, you can see that the situation has changed again in terms of the forecast. Looks like it's now going to be dry over the next 10 minutes. So really, this is proving to be quite the lottery here in Belgium, in Spa. But Skunky will be aware of this and he'll want to manage that pace as best as he can. I wonder what tyres people have selected as well. I wonder if anyone would have gambled with the wet tyre, I wonder. It could still all change, of course. Even on this formation lap, it could completely change. As we have a few little bits of ghosting going on there. For those that aren't aware in terms of, if you know much about Spa, the town, obviously it's eponymous with spa baths, so mineral baths in the Ardennes mountain, a lot of natural spring water. It is a fascinating place. One thing that I am aware of in terms of, and this is quite a random fact I have to say that I'm about to tell you regarding Spa, that one of the Yeah, one of the this is a bizarre fact. It's not really to do with racing, but it is something to do with Spa itself. One of the violinists on the Titanic was born in Spa, from what I've heard. So yeah, that's a nice random fact for everybody to get hold of there. But the drivers are now rounding turn 16 at Paul Frere. What I'd like to do is try and get hold of... It's not ideal actually. Let's go with... Yeah, I think Steve Hull, probably the best driver to follow here. There's very minimal rainfall here, I have to say. Now the drivers now lining themselves up. They're going to come to the penultimate corner. They're not going to go racing, for those that are watching for the first time, they're not going to go racing at the start-finish line. The GT3 start-finish line is actually on the approach to turn number 3 at Eau Rouge. So there's a mini straight that the guys will drive up towards, and then they will go racing. So they will not launch from here. As you can see, Andy Skunky weaving the tyres rather dramatically. But now everybody trying to get themselves into position. We're going to see some overtakes this evening as well. If it doesn't rain, there's definitely going to be the opportunity for setups to have a massive impact on people's races this evening. But Skunky is about to get us underway here for 1 hour of racing here in Spa-Francorchamps, this brilliant circuit nestled within the Ardennes. And we're racing here at Spa-Francorchamps. The race is live. We've got a drive-through penalty for Neil Wright, unfortunately, but Andy Skunky is away. It's a cracking start for him. He should be okay. Heading towards Le Com for the first time. Just looking in the background, looks like there's a couple of cars side by side. Simon Whiting trying to find a way through. We've got Danny Zoutenbayer here. There's a little bit of rain as they approach Le Com. On the brakes, into the corner they go. A little bit of contact between himself and Simon Whiting, who goes over the curbs. Try and just keep an eye on all of the action where we can. Skunky is still leading the race. I know it says otherwise. That's a car off the road. And I think it was Tony Manley I saw in the background. It's very difficult to try and pick anybody out. Michael van der Waal here were following. Simon Whiting has made a good start though. He's up to 7th place. Remy Fermi's gone off the road. He's back on again, but he's lost a spot to a couple of drivers. Mark Chapman in 3rd place. He's not in 4th. He is in 3rd place on the road. Looks like something's happened to Jacob Byford-Roux, who's gone to the pits for reasons unbeknownst to us. But other than Tony Manley going off the road, and it doesn't look like he's got any damage either. Good move that from Remy Fermi. I have to say, John Wells was saying before, he went with a compromised setup. If it doesn't rain, he's going to be all at sea here, I think, tonight. Because if he's got a compromised setup and he's going for a bit more of a wet weather effect, he's got to hope for his sake he's going to be okay. There's a car off the road. That's a huge accident. Dennis Penders is off. John Wells has gone with him. There's a few other cars in the middle of the track. I think Steve Hall's one of them. Yeah, there's Penders coming back onto the road trying to get on the circuit. And loads of cars peeling into the pit, so they're all on the wrong tyre. We just saw Steve Hall stranded in the middle of the road, and he goes into the pits. I don't quite foresee what happened. I saw Dennis Penders off the road, and all the drivers who were coming into the pit, I wonder if they're changing tyres, and their pit stop is around the other side of the track. So Andy Skunky is in the lead of this race. We've got Jacob Byford-Rue in front on circuit. Let's just have a return to the garage. We've got to see what's going on here. So Mark Chapman is in second place. There's Simon Whiting, who's had an unbelievable start. Sebastian Berger has made it round to the first part of the pit. So it's actually Remy Fermi. We're trying to work this out as we go along. It's actually Mike Verwise then in fourth place. Remy Fermi in fifth. Danny Felix in sixth. Tony Manley in seventh. And Dennis Penders, who must have got away with that because he's carried on. I wonder if there's just been a bit of side-by-side. He's got damage to the side of his car. He must have some form of significant damage. He's just overtaken Tony Manley. But his car was off the road with John Wells. But I have to say, if I'm being completely honest, John Wells had nowhere to go. He just saw Steve Hall stranded in the middle of the road, who definitely has damage as a result of that. I wonder if they were just side by side and that was it. Sebastian Berger is out of the pits and underway. And the Porsche 992 fires the car up the hill. Off he goes. I'm wondering if they've gone for slick tyres or wet tyres. We simply don't know. We're working this out as we go along. Danny Zoutenbayer coming out of the pits now. John Wells getting his damage fixed. He might be there for a while. But it's Skunky who's 2.4 seconds in front at the moment. He carries on. And I'm wondering whether or not these guys decided to gamble on dry tyres. And it's paying dividends for them. I'll have to find out what happened to Jacob Byford-Rue as well, because that's Steve Hall still in the pits. Yeah, so Steve Hall's got some significant damage. He's going to go a lap down. I mean, he's just coming out of the pit lane on your right-hand side, but he's going up the hill, so he's going to get overtaken there. So drama already in the opening 5 minutes. We've had a whole bunch of cars go into the pits. Simon Whiting is closing the gap down to Mark Chapman already. Mike is 8 seconds clear of Dennis Penders. Then it's Danny Felix, Remy Fermi, Tony Manley now into the pit lane. I wonder if Manley's damage is why he's come back into the pits. Neil Wright is also out there as well, but the thing for Neil Wright is that he served his drive-through penalty for jumping the start. Sebastian Berger is all by himself. There's absolutely nobody with him. In terms of this race, ladies and gentlemen, it can go absolutely anywhere at this point. Because we've got drivers on different strategies. Drivers who gambled on different sets of tyres. And it really has spread the field out. This is the closest fight on circuit at the moment. So Joe Warner running in 13th place. He's 8 seconds clear of Rich Jarram, who's just in front of John Wells and Michael van der Waal. Everybody else is just a little bit spread further out. Simon Whiting only less than a second behind Mark Chapman, so that fight's not over yet. It's only just begun. So yeah, that is now completely dry. There's no rain falling. A little bit deep from Michael van der Waal there. Certainly less than ideal. But it's not going to cause him any harm. The Dutchman in 11th place. Runs a little bit deep there. Simon Whiting on the back of Mark Chapman, so these two are especially close to one another. Andy Skunky pulling away in the Ferrari, just like he did 2 weeks ago at the Nordschleife. Andy Skunky, once he's in a rhythm, looks especially fast. Now, for those people that did start on the wet tyre compound, just looking at Simon Whiting, still got his windscreen wiper on, but there is absolutely no rain falling. But I'm wondering if those drivers, they all pitted. They might have to pit again, those drivers who come into the pits and got a new set of tyres on, because I don't think the tyres are going to be able to last for that long. I don't think they will. But Simon Whiting is putting the pressure on in these early stages. My first ever commentating gig here with ACC Race Nation was the 2-hour race of Spa-Francorchamps for season 8. It was the final round of the season. It was a 2-hour event, and Simon Whiting was especially quick around here. He was very quick. He was putting a lot of pressure on Steve Hall, and I'm not surprised that he's had a fantastic start, and maybe he did decide to go with a completely dry setup, because if he has, he's gone up from effectively the lower reaches of the top 10 into 3rd place. He's on for a fabulous result. They've got a car in the pits. I'm just looking to see. I think that might be Danny Felix. So 2:22.4 was the last lap from Simon Whiting as he kicks the car over the gravel on a little bit of oversteer. Mark Chapman also pushing the extremities on the exit of turn 16. Remy Fermi's in 6th position. Considering that he's not had a single finish this year, he would be delighted with that. It's got Dennis Penders, who's representing the home nation of Belgium, in 5th place in the top 5. Great drive for him. Rich Jarram has just got past Joe Warner. I think there's going to be some overtakes coming here. Look at the back view shot from Jarram's Mustang, the only Mustang in the field this evening. No Anthony Hunt, nor is there the... Oh, that was wide. They both run wide as well as Warner. But as I was saying, yeah, no Anthony Hunt, nor is there Tom Creed. Both of those two normally drive Ford Mustangs. But the Mustang was very, very quick in the hands of Jordan Harding around here last season. But Rich Jarram is hanging on at the moment. A little bit wide from him there. Mark Chapman still clear of Simon Whiting. Sebastian Berger on his lonesome at the moment. He's going for a lonely race. Danny Felix is pitted as well. So I saw another car had gone into the pits. He's down in 11th place now, having made his pit stop. There's Neil Wright in the top 7. And he's 13 seconds clear of the first of the drivers who've pitted. But don't forget, as I said before, Neil Wright had to serve that drive-through. He's in a battle of his own wits, really, this evening. And I think the drivers who started on those dry compound tyres, which it looks to be the case, they are going to be laughing all the way home as I say that. Mike Verwij kicks the car sideways out of Pouhon. A little bit too much application of the throttle. Back in this fight for 13th place. Rich Jarram still leads the group, but Joe Warner's right there with them. You've got... I was just going to say, Michael van der Waal was surely not going to look for a move on the outside of Blanchimont. He doesn't. He slots in behind. They're closing up to the back of Tony Manley and Danny Felix as well. So these guys are going to come together and form effectively a sextet of cars. This is one of those races where it's all in the balance. Oh, Joe Warner just leaving the door open for John Wells, but in the end didn't really commit to it and kind of had a half look at the inside. You can see Andy Skunky right there with them as well, so these guys are going to be a lap down in a moment. Quick direction change through Eau Rouge over the top at Radion. I think Rich Jarram is right with... Yeah, there he is. He's right with Tony Manley. So that sextet didn't quite happen. It's a trio of cars instead. Van der Waal has got past not just John Wells, but also Joe Warner. Well, he looked at the inside. I was going to say that was going to be brave. Manley runs a little bit deep. But the Italian shouldn't have any trouble with that whatsoever. "13 minutes gone in this race so far, and there's been a lot to talk about already. And the whole grid is really shaken up at the moment. We're following Rich Jarram here in the Mustang, the number 878. Whoa, that's very, very deep. At Campus, he just about sticks it to the tarmac. And will live to carry on, but Rich Jarram can't afford to be running too deep there, otherwise he'll end up on the grass and potentially skate off the road. He's got Michael van der Wal catching him just behind in the 720S Evo McLaren. So it might be a quartet in a moment. This is a good fight to watch at the moment on circuit. But there's a lot of cars that are all quite concentrated together as Tony Manley has a little moment on the exit of the corner, and through goes Jarram. Or did Manley pull over there and let him through it? I think perhaps he might have done. I think perhaps he looked back and just thought, well, Jarram looks quicker than me, I'll try and get a run off of him. Try and follow the Mustang for a little bit. Let's try and get into the cockpits of everyone. Look at this here. Mark Chapman, Simon Whiting, you've got John Wells mixed up in all this as well. Chapper's defending heavily from the McLaren. They're trying to deal with the lap traffic. They're all kind of close together here. That's a better line from Chapper's, and he remains in second place. But as you can see, those that have made a pit stop, they're right with this leading fight as well. So there's quite a heavy concentration of cars together. John Wells brakes a little bit too deep. He loses the back end and round he goes. And I don't think there was anything anybody did there. Oh, that's a bad place to rejoin, and he clips Steve Hall, who's facing the wrong way, and John Wells is going to find himself with a penalty for that. I don't think Steve will be impressed with that one. Back on board with Simon Whiting. And now this time with Mark Chapman, who's defending heavily, but the McLaren almost underneath him at Puon, but just about shuts the door. Let's try and get to... Thank you very much, directors, appreciate that. There we go, that's the one that we wanted. On board under the black sky of night here in the Ardennes Forest. A quarter of the race done. Simon Whiting having an intense fight for second place. Where have we heard that one before? At Spa-Francorchamps. He's in the slipstream of the Aston Martin, but the problem is that Aston Martin is very, very quick in a straight line. And you can just see that the AMR V8 just has a little bit more extra grunt as they approach Blanchimont. But Whiting clearly feel very comfortable on the brakes. But they're going to have to try and navigate some more traffic now in the form of Tony Manley and Michael van der Wal. These guys lapping about 2 seconds faster than van der Wal and 4 seconds quicker than Manley on that lap. That's deep from Chapman. It goes over the curb, and this might be the opportunity that Simon Whiting's been looking for in the opening 15 minutes. You can see the rear diffuser of the back of the Aston Martin. He's got to get the line right though. He's got to really commit up over Rouge and Radion, and he does. Car shakes out a little bit over the curb in the slipstream, delays the gear change for as long as he possibly could. Chapman defending to the inside, but I don't think Whiting has the legs, and he just doesn't. That Aston Martin is absolutely sensational in a straight line, but he makes a little mistake. That's the inside line for Whiting, but he just backs out of it. Talking about the sensational straight line speed of the Aston Martin, sensational car control as well from Chapman. I'm surprised he hung on to that. I thought he was going to go round. But Whiting clearly demonstrating that he has a really nice setup for the middle sector of the track. He just can't exploit it. Chappers defends heavily into Pouon. Simon Whiting trying to put him on the wrong line. Bit of dust kicked up. Can he go underneath the Aston Martin at the left-hander? He's going to try. He's on the curb, but he's not quite close enough. And again, the Aston Martin can just stretch away. It's really difficult to overtake anybody through campus. You don't often see a move into Stavolo either. And sure enough, there isn't one there. There's a yellow flag in front of us, and I think that's Danny Felix who's gone round. It is. And I wonder if he's found the barrier. But sadly for Danny Felix, who was running in the top 12, he's gone round at turn 15. Just watching Simon Whiting, he just can't get close enough. You could see the Aston Martin Racing spoiler text on the back of the car. But he doesn't want to see that as Whiting, he wants to be in front of it. Oh, brakes a little bit late there. Everybody braking a little bit later. There's a bit of debris on the track there too. Blue flags flying for Tony Manley. It's been a good fight to watch so far, and Manley, the Italian, getting out of the way, and that's a sensible place to have gotten out of the way there. Chapman again running deep as we follow them towards Eau Rouge and Radion. It's a nice line through there, but Whiting has to back out of it over the top of the curve. In fact, he's got a bit of slipstream, but again, he just cannot get close enough. So Mark Chapman, who's comfortably doing 167, 68 miles an hour, and Whiting was doing about 162, so the AMR V8 is in a really nice place, but really struggles in this sector too here, the first part of the sector. The Aston doesn't have the lateral grip that the McLaren has. Short shift into second for Whiting. Third gear, then down to second, turns the car in nicely. They've got another set of back markers to navigate now. Andy Skunky has checked out as well. He's done a great job dealing with the back markers. A little mistake again from Chappers. He gets run into the back of by Whiting, who was trying to find a way past. No harm done. Whiting is trying everything. He's looking left, he's looking right. There are other fights going on around circuit, but these two, this is a really important fight for Simon Whiting. He's got to get past the Aston Martin as soon as possible. Oh, a bit of dust kicked up from in front of them. I think Rich Jarram's gone wide, and yeah, you can see the Mustang off the road, rejoins the track and then goes back off of it. Less than ideal, but Andy Skunky's 7 seconds up the road. And that's all from navigating the traffic really brilliantly. These two have been infighting whilst the traffic they've tried to navigate around has done quite well to get out of the way. Down through the gears into first. Nice line that from Chappers, but Whiting's other half was better. And this is great action to watch here for ACC Race Nation Season 10. Again, down into La Source we go for the 9th time of asking. Another good line from Whiting. You can see the Total Energy sticker now on the back of the Aston Martin. You can see the Pirelli stickers too. He's just weaving to try and find a way past. He's trying to fill the mirrors of Chappers, trying to distract him, but he's just not close enough. We saw the Aston before, it got up to 168, 169 miles an hour. Probably could do 170 to be fair. And Whiting just can't get close enough. That McLaren running a little bit more downforce. Oh, and gets the braking wrong into Les Combes, goes over the grass, bounces back on. Oh, that was a bit awkward actually, but gets away with it. And that's that battle paused for the time being. But you can tell Whiting getting a bit frustrated, wanting to overtake. Remy Fermi running in the top 14. Rich Jarram in 11th. Chappers will have a breather. Jacob Byford-Root at the back of the field. He's not far away from John Wells though. Sebastian Berger has been slowly catching Neil Wright. over these last few laps. Neil Wright on for a top 10 finish as we stand. But I'm just wondering about these drivers who've already pitted. You know, their tyres by the end of this race are going to be especially second hand. And I wonder if they can hang on to their tyre compounds. Remains to be seen whether they can or can't. Let's just remind ourselves, 36 minutes and 52 seconds to go in this race. These are all the drivers who've got the green bar next to their name on the timing tower. All of these drivers, as Joe Warner makes an overtake on John Wells. But I think they're going to swap places again. There you go. John Wells are on the outside of Paul Frey, on the inside for Blanchimont, the first part of it, and into 16th place he goes. But all these drivers with the green tab next to them, they've all made a pit stop. And it's a case now of whether those drivers will be able to take those tyres to the end of this race, as Tony Manley is right directly behind the Mustang of Rich Jarron. But that's probably the worst car to be stuck behind in the main straight that we're coming up to, because the Mustang is incredibly fast in a straight line. BMW M4 is no slouch either, but compared to the Mustang, it doesn't have the same element of speed about it. Good evening to you, Jeffrey Van Buren. He's got work tonight, which is why he's not here. Disappointed to not have you here, Jeffrey. It's always a pleasure watching you race in this championship. But those drivers who started on the slick, as Tony Manley gets the car sideways out of Le Com at turn number 9. But out of those drivers who are in the top 6 who didn't make a pit stop, they must be delighted with this situation. Yes, they're going to have to make a pit stop, and they'll probably fall back into the clutches of the green ticked field. However, they will have fresh tyres that will easily go all the way to the end of the race. And they'll have an opportunity to close back up onto these drivers. And you're looking at Dennis Penders, you know, the Belgian, 5th in the Drivers' Championship. He's had a 5th place this season. This could pull him into the title fight, because, you know, Danny Zoutenbayer is behind him at the moment on circuit. Steve Hall is recovering from his incident at the start of the race. You know, Mark Chapman's the only one in front of him. I mean, Mark Chapman's in the best place of any of the championship protagonists. You know, the season 10 championship leader. He's miles in front of anyone who's nearby. Speaking of nearby, Andy Skunky decides this is the time to get his first pit stop, and probably his only pit stop unless we have more rain, of the session. So he comes in. Simon Whiting has closed that gap back up to Mark Chapman again. There's Mike Vawage. I've never seen him run this high up in ACC before. Always in the top 10 from what I recall from the previous seasons, but this is a great strategy call that has propelled him to a spot that he'll be delighted to take. Dennis Penders decides it's time to pit as well. Gets a new fresh set of tyres on. Neil Wright is not far ahead of Sebastian Berger now. Tony Manley is still with Rich Jarron. Just looking at Dan here, Danny Felix in 13th place. Doesn't look like he got any damage. He did spin at turn 15, but got away with it, evidently. So happy days for Danny Felix, but he did lose quite a fair amount of time because he was in front of these guys. Michael van der Waals had a good recovery. He's back into the top 10 in his newly liveried 720S Evo. Don't forget, these guys are a lap down currently, but they haven't made their pit stops, the race leaders, yet. And a pit stop around Spa does take a long time. You've got to go all the way around the pit lane. It takes quite, onto this part of the circuit, it does take quite a long time. Neil Wright, though, as we follow up the hill over Eau Rouge. That Porsche gets quite light over the top of Radion, I notice. If we have a look in the rear view mirror, Sebastian Berger, the man on the mission, will have to try and find his way past the 55. And again, Neil doesn't have to let Berger through, but Berger was very quick through Les Combes. He's going to look at the inside at Bruel, and sure enough, he goes through. And Neil Wright, in fact, didn't even fight too hard. He just lets his fellow Porsche stablemate through. Not necessarily a bad decision, that, to be honest, from Wright. He can try and follow the two-time race winner this season, but that's easier said than done. And the most important thing here is, let's just have a quick cut back to the garage. Just looking to see where Andy Skunky is. That's the position for him. And he's emerged 4 seconds in front of Sebastian Berger. Into the pits comes Simon Whiting. He's had enough of following Mark Chapman. He wants to try and undercut him. That's his strategy. If he can't get past him on circuit, that's the next plan. Try and get past him in the pit stop. So that's another driver in. Just looking to see Dennis Penders is in 8th position at the moment, following his pit stop. Davy Zoutenbayer doing a great job so far in this race. He's having a cracking time out there. 9th position for him. And for Davy Zoutenbayer, he's had a number of, well, every single race he's done this season, he's finished inside the top 10. I think he's had 9th and 8th places, but he's having a great drive again.
We are halfway through, not over yet.
Now Danzo in 14th place, aka Danny Felix. His recovery drive, his next car to come up against, is Remy Fermi. Oh, and as I say that, he understeers into the gravel trap. He's having some difficulties with turn 15. That's going to put Steve Hall right behind him. Just looking to see the car placements. There's Andy Skunky in 3rd position. He's got Sebastian Berger pushing behind. Simon Whiting has come out only 5 seconds behind Berger, so that's not worked out too badly for them at all. Neil Wright still circulating. Danny Zoutenbayer in the pits. Dennis Penders is 24 seconds behind Danny Zoutenbayer. So let's see how he gets on now in the second half of this race. The race engineer did just come on before to say it was past halfway mark, and that's important. Race leader in the pits. Mark Chapman into the pit lane. Andy Skunky is at turn 16. And Mike Verwage is leading this race. So first time I've seen Mike Verwage take the lead of the race here. So yeah, Mike Verwage leading for what I think is the first time. These two still together. Tony Manley and Rich Jarron. They've had a good fight throughout the whole race, to be honest. They have got the race leader behind them. But just a reminder, the race leader is still yet to pit. Tony Manley trying to find his way through. And Simon Whiting has come out quite comfortably in front of Mark Chapman. I've just watched the Aston Martin go up the hill over Radion. Simon Whiting has undercut then Mark Chapman, and that's a position gain. Let's see what his true pace is like now in that McLaren. But we're on board with Tony Manley. Brakes a lot later than Jarram. Into the bus stop chicane. Kick of oversteer from the M4. Interesting. Oh, that's deep from Jarram. That's a chance. Up the inside for the Italian. Can he go past the Brits? I don't think he can. Oh, that's exceptionally close, and Manley just has to back out of it. But for him, he'll want to try and get a good line through. Oh, Rouge, he does, but Rich Jarram was flat through there. No fear at all. Neil right now in the pits. This is a fight and a position for the top 10. Where was Rich Jarram going then? And yeah, Manley, rightfully so, just backed off that. Backed off the throttle completely. I don't blame him at all. Because if Rich Jarram had gone round, that would have been a massive accident. 25 minutes and 50 seconds to go in this race. There's still a lot to play for. Steve Hall in the pits again. And I wonder... And he goes back to there. So I wonder if Steve Hall's race any higher than 16th now would be impressive. Or it would require a bit of fortune. Danny Zaltenbayer now going after Mark Chapman. So the gap between those two, 4 seconds. Simon Whiting is quite far ahead. 6 seconds, yeah. Mike Verwij, race leader, into the pits. And Andy Skunky resumes at the front of this race. A 220.6 is his best lap. His last lap he did a 220.3. We just compare that with Simon Whiting, who's doing 220.8. And we'll go to Sebastian Berger, who's also doing 220.8. So he did his best lap on that last circuit then. Did the Porsche. Oh, and Rich Jarram, I thought he was pushing the boundaries of the track limits. And that's a drive-through penalty for him. And that fight that he's had all race long, that's been a really good fight to watch as well. Sadly, will come to a close between himself and everybody else. In fact, Rich Jarram is in the pits. Yeah, I was just about to say, the fight that he was having with Tony Manley was brilliant to watch, but sadly that won't go on anymore. So Neil Wright's pit stop has put him out in 15th position. His drive-through penalty from earlier really has put him out of sync with everybody else. Were it not for that, not for a jump start, you know, Neil would be looking at potentially a top 10 finish, but alas, it's not the case. Mike Verwij on for a top 6 would be his best result I've ever seen. He's come out behind Danny Zaltenbayer. And John Wells with Danny Felix. Now this is a sight that these two have seen before and I've commentated on before. I was a little bit deep from Wells though. But the two M4 drivers putting in a good shift so far. Red light flashing on the back of Felix's M4, which is interesting. Just looking at the temperature drive-through condition. Ah, there we go. Drive-through cleared for Rich Jarram. But looking at the track conditions, there's not going to be any more rain. So we're expecting a wet race. We briefly had rain, and that was that. But Danny Felix and John Wells together on circuit. Thankfully for race direction, right next to each other on the scrollable pit direction. Oh, kick of oversteer at turn 15. Danny is really struggling with that corner. I've noticed it a few times. For whatever reason, the M4 just isn't enjoying that corner. Whether it's his setup, whether it's struggling with a little bit of adverse camber, I'm not quite sure. And also, his car is the only one with a flashing light. Not sure if that's there as a distraction tactic, but he went a little bit deep there. And Wells was right on the throttle there, trying to get up to the back of the M4 in front of him. And Dando moves across to the left. Very dramatic that from Felix. It's a little bit deeper from Wells on the brakes. Up through the gears for the two M4s. They'll both be in fifth gear about now. Got Remy Fermi about 6 seconds up the road from them. It'll be a little bit wide. There's a white flag out there. And that's Remy Fermi. Oh! Remy Fermi trying to get onto the other side of the track. I just said Remy Fermi's in front of them, but he's gone off the road at Eau Rouge. Nearly had a huge accident with the two M4s following. Let's just find out how bad. Oh, it was such a shout. I was about to say. That Remy Fermi was having a great drive. One thing that has also happened, sadly, is that we have lost the ability to go back and change all the camera angles. So we're going to have to make do with the timing tower. It's as if the